we have Tevul Yom, the base olive. Liquids that emanate from a Tevul Yom are like liquids that he touches. Both these liquids and those liquids do not render foods tummy. And with respect to all the other sources of tuma, whether they are tummy or to a light degree or a severe degree, liquids that emanate from them are like liquids that touch them. And both these liquids and those liquids are considered the beginning level of tuma, with the exception of the liquid that is in Ava tuma. Concerning a pot that is full of liquids and was touched by a tevil yom, if the liquid was of truma, the liquid is disqualified, but the pot is tahor. But if it was a liquid of kulin, everything is tahor, but if his hands were unclean, everything is tameh. This is the stringency that applies to unclean hands over a tevil yom. There is also a stringency that applies to a tevil yom over unclean hands. While an uncertainty concerning a tevil yom renders truma puzzle, all uncertainty concerning unclean hands is considered tahor. Concerning a porridge made of truma and the garlic and oil that are of kulin, if a tevil yom touch part of them, he has rendered all of them puzzle. If the porridge was of kulin and the garlic and the oil were of truma, and a tevil yom touched part of them, he has rendered puzzle only the place of his touch. If the garlic was the majority, we follow the majority. If Yehuda says when they form a mass in the bowl, but if it was separated in the mortar, it is tahor, since he wants the separation. And the same applies to all other pounded foods. If they were pounded with beverages, but concerning those foods that are normally pounded with beverages, if we pounded them with beverages, even if they are massed in the bowl, they are treated like a round cake of pressed figs.
Okay,
Okay.
basically to summarize what we're learning so far is that the Tfil Yom, even though he is considered a Shani Latuma, so first of all, he can't affect anything Chulin. All that we're ever talking about with the Tfil Yom is Truma.
Uh,
Okay? And even then, his touch is a very weak touch, and it doesn't transmit easily tuma to other things, especially mixtures. Even with mixtures, we look at at specifically what he touches in the mixture, as opposed to other forms of tuma. You touch one thing, it's like boom, the whole mixture's gone.
well,
Okay.
okay.
So we're a lot more discerning about what the Tvil Yom touches. So Mishnah Dalet. Hamikpa v'chamita shel cholin. So mikpa is like a thick
They call it a porridge. So,
porridge. There we go. Thank you. And a chamita is a thin cake,
right,
right?
flat cake, right, made of coolant.
Right. So if it's made out of cholin, immediately you're going to hear, okay, cholin is safe from the Tvil Yom. A shemen shel truma. Now, the oil is truma oil that he added into this mixture. Okay. Um, Vezetzaf al gabehin. V'naga tvul yom b'shemen. So the tvul yom touched the oil. Lo pasal ela hashemen. Only the oil itself became puzzle, and
Hmm.
that's like, and you can imagine that the oil would probably have been absorbed somewhat into the chulin. You think, oh, did he affect that? And we say the only thing that he affected is the oil that's by itself, not the oil that was absorbed into the whatever the food is, which is chulin. Im chibetz. Now, im chibetz is like if he mixed up the porridge with the oil. So now it's all stirred in and it's mixed in kol makom shehilech hashemin pasal. Now everywhere that the oil got mixed in is going to be pasal, because now he's actually taken pasal oil and he has mixed the pasal oil into the rest of the porridge that we're going to draw the line at. Okay, and that he's not going to be allowed to eat. Okay, hey, Basar HaKodesh Shekarim Alav HaKippah. Okay, so you have holy meat. Okay, now remember, Kodesh is even it takes even a fourth degree of Tumah.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's
Right.
it's stronger than to take that's we have to be more concerned about it than Truma even. Okay, so Shekarim Alav HaKippah, and now it's formed a congealed gravy on top of it. Okay, Nagat Tvul Yom Bakipah. So now if the Tvul Yom touches the congealed gravy on the top, nonetheless the chatichos are mutaras, the pieces of meat. So obviously the part that he touched on top is going to become tame,
Hmm.
because it accepts third degree tuma, but we don't say that it'll transmit to the pieces. Naga b'chaticha if he touched a piece of meat inside this congealed gravy, chaticha v'chol ha'orim ima chibur ze lezeh, then that piece of meat and whatever will come up with it when you pull it out of the stew. Imagine, like, remember, this is talking about a congealed stew of some sort. So I touched that piece of meat. Quickly, let's take a fork and lift it out. So whatever comes out with it is also considered tame and may not be eaten. Okay. Chibur said they are connected with each other. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer Shneim Chibur Zelazeh. He says now it works the other way around as well. That if the Tvul Yom had to touch even the gravy that was next to it, if it comes out with that piece, then it's a chibur as well in the other direction. Okay, halacha does not follow Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri here. V'chein bekitnios shekarmu al gabe prusos. The same thing happens with legumes that's shekarmu al that he put onto bread. What it was yeah, like it formed a layer over some slices of bread. Okay, the same deal will happen over there. If the bread, assuming that the bread is truma bread, or what is it called? Would it be Kodesh? I guess it must be talking. I suppose it could be talking about either. So it could be truma bread as well. Okay. Maser kadera bekitnios. If something was cooked in a pot with kitnios, bizman shehen prudim, if everything is separate, einan chibur, they don't connect to each other. So that you made some sort of a soup with the legumes and the tvul yom and the truma. The tvul yom
Mhm.
touches one of them, only that part becomes tame. It's not a chibur. Bizman shehen gush, however, if they form a clump, then it's a chibur, and the tumah is transmitted throughout the clump. Im hayu gushin harbain, if there were lots of separate clumps, hare elu yimanu, then they must be counted. Now, what does it mean if that must be counted? That if that we're talking about degrees of tumah that transmit between them. So, for example, if we're not talking about a tzvul yom over here, let's say we're talking about a sheretz. A sheretz is an avatoma. It touches the first gush. The first gush becomes a rishon. Then the second that gush is touching a second gush that becomes a sheni. So that's what it means when we say that they must be counted. That because every contact goes down a degree of tumah.
Step right. Okay.
Okay. Shemen shehu tzaf al gabe hayayin. Now, what happens if you have oil that's floating over wine? Okay, and again, the wine presumably is truma wine. And a tvul yom, naga tvul yom b'shemen. So the tvul yom touches the oil. Okay. Lo pasal el shemen. This is assuming this is truma oil. So it's truma oil floating on top of truma wine. Only thing that becomes tame is the oil because he touches it, it becomes a shlishi. It cannot transmit to the
Well,
wine. They're not wine and oil obviously don't mix. Um, so there's no connection between them. Well, I mean, it would if Trump accepted a fourth degree, then it would happen, but not in this case. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer Shnehem Chibur Ze Lezeh. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, I guess in a similar vein to what he said earlier in the Mishnah, is that they are considered connected, being both liquids. Nonetheless, the halacha does not follow him in either case. Mishnah Vav Chavis Shesh Shak Al Lesoch Bor Shel Yain. So a barrel sank into a vat of wine. So you have a barrel of let's say truma wine that sank into the vat. Okay, and it's now covered by a layer of other wine. Okay. Naga bo tvul yom. So now the tvul yom stuck his hand into the vat, and now the question is, does the does his hand does his hand if his hand obviously if his hand enters enters the vat of wine, obviously he will make it. He will be the pastelet. But we've got all this chulin wine that's floating above it. So the question is, where does his hand reach to? Minas safa v'lifnim chibor. If he gets his hand into the area of the lip of the barrel or further in, that's a chibor. Okay, and this is even if the barrel of trimmer wine was not full. So it got pushed into the vat, and some chulin wine spilled into, obviously filled the vacuum. So now it's filled with presumably trimmer wine at the bottom and chulin wine at the top with a little bit of a mixture presumably. So we say that if his hand reaches the level of the top of the barrel, then all of the wine that's inside the barrel is considered a chibur. Even if he's only touching chulin wine, it's a chibur to the trimmer wine that's at the bottom, and the whole barrel becomes puzzle. But if it's above there, if his hand is above that level of the top of the barrel, ein chibur. That is not considered a connection, and nothing happens to the trimmer wine. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer afilu al gaba rum koma. Even if the barrel is sunk in an entire floor deep, like I don't know, 5 meters deep into the vat, and he sticks his hand above the airspace of the barrel, if he puts it above the barrel, it's considered a chibur, he says, and the trimmer wine becomes in the barrel becomes pasul. And yeah, again, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri here, but if you had to follow his halacha out, what he's saying is if the wine inside the barrel becomes pasul, effectively it's going to be really hard to have the rest of the chulin wine unless there's more than 100 against it. Um,
Ah,
you need to have more than 100 against it in the chulin wine to be mevatel it. Otherwise, if you pull it out, how do you know how much of the wine has
ah,
mixed
yeah,
and changed places? Okay, so that's that.
very confusing.
Hmm.
Okay, Zavim, dollar dollar. In a case of a Zav who is lying upon 5 benches or upon 5 money belts, if he lies along the length, they are all tame. However, if he lies across the width, they are all tahor. If he slept and there is a doubt that he may have turned around on them, they are all tame. If the Zav was lying upon 6 chairs with his 2 arms resting upon 2 of them and his 2 legs resting upon 2 of them, his head upon one and his body upon one, only this one that is beneath his body is tame. If the Zav was standing on 2 chairs, the Reb Shimon says that they are distant one from the other, they are tahor. In the case where 10 shawls were placed one on top of the other, and a Zav slept upon the top one, they are all tame. In a case where a Zav was on one pan of a scale and a couch or seat was in the opposite side, or if the Zav weighed down its side, they are tahor. But if they weigh down their side, they are tame. Reb Shimon says, in a case of a single couch or seat, it's tame, but in a case of many, they are tahor because the one touch on no one no because no one couch or seat supports the majority of the body. If a zav is on one pan of a scale and food and beverages on the other's pan of the scale, they are tame. But regard to a corpse,
Oh, sorry. Okay.
everything is tahor except the person. There's a stringency that applies to a zav over a corpse, and this is the stringency that applies to a corpse over a zav. Right? That's right. Azav creates a couch and seat beneath him with the ability to contaminate a man to contaminated clothing, and on top of him, the Zav creates a medav with the ability to contaminate food and beverages, whereas a corpse does not have the power to contaminate in these ways.
Yeah.
There
Okay.
is a stringency that
No, no,
applies
that's it.
to.
That's it. We're done three there.
I,
There's Nida,
I don't think I finished. I didn't finish the last one.
didn't you? Oh,
No.
beg your pardon. Oh, sorry.
A
Sorry.
stringency that applies to a corpse, that a corpse contaminates in an ohel and contaminates others with a tumor that lasts for 7 days, whereas a zav does not have the power to contaminate in these ways.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes.
Nida,
Nida.
test out. Regarding an examination cloth that was placed under a pillow and blood was found on it, if the stain is round, it is tahor, but if it's elongated, it's tameh. These are the words of Rabbi Elazar ben the son of Reb Zadok. A woman was tending to her needs and saw blood. Reb Meir says if she was standing, she was tummy, but if she was sitting, she is tahor. Reb Yossi says either way, she is tahor. A man and a woman attended to their needs, were urinating into a basin, and blood was found upon the urine. Reb Yossi rules her tahor, but Reb Shimon rules her tummy, since it is not normal for a man to discharge blood. Rather, the presumption of blood is that it comes from the woman.
Okay. Hey, para Zayin Yudala.
Okay. If the two were filling their barrels for cutlass water, they helped each other lift the barrels or remove the thorn from one another. For one sanctification it is valid. For two sanctifications, it is disqualified. If Yossi says even with two sanctifications, it is valid if they were stipulated upon between themselves. If someone breaks through a fence intending to repair it, the water is valid. But if he repairs it, the water is disqualified. If one eats figs that had tended to spread out to dry, the water is valid. But if he spreads them out to dry, the water is disqualified. If he was sitting and left over and threw what was in his hand under a
Eating.
fig tree to the drying area so that they should not become lost, the water is disqualified. If two people were watching the trough and one of them became tummy, the water is valid since it is the second person's possession. If he became tahor and the second person became tummy, the water is valid since it is the first person's possession. If they both became tummy at the same time, the water is disqualified. If one of them performed a different activity, the water is valid since it is the second person's possession. And if he stopped and the second person performed a different activity, the water is valid since it is the first watchman's possession. If they both perform the different activity simultaneously, the water is disqualified. We go to Rhesus. Okay. Olive hay. The following did not bring an offering. She who aborts a shell filled with water, or filled with blood, or filled with a varicolored substance. She who aborts something resembling the fish, locusts, abominable creatures, or crawling things. She who aborts on the 40th day, or one who delivers by cesarean section. From Shimon declares liable, one who delivers by cesarean section. She who aborts on the eve of the 81st day, Reb Shammai compels her from an offering. They still declare her liable and says Hillel to Reb Shammai, in what ways does the evening preceding the 81st day differ from the 81st day itself? Furthermore, if it is the same regarding Tumah, should it not be the same regarding an offering? The Shammai replied to them, no. If you say regarding a woman who was born on the 81st day, it is because it came out at a time when she is fit to bring an offering. You say it of one of the abortion on the evening preceding the 81st day, since for it did not come out at a time when she is fit to bring an offering. Replied Basil, but she who aborts on the 81st day that fell on Shabbos will prove our porch, for it did not come out on a time when she is fit to bring an offering, yet she is liable to an offering. Replied Beit Shammai, no, if you said of one who aborted on the 81st day that fell on Shabbos, for even though it's fit for a personal offering, it is for a communal offering. We say of one who aborted on the evening of the 81st day, since the night is fit neither for a personal offering nor a communal offering. For over the law of the blood is not conclusive, since if a woman aborts within a milus period, her blood is usually richly contaminated, yet she is exempt from an offering. A woman who is liable for 5 cases of diva, for 5 cases of childbirth, must bring one offering, and then she may paytak of offerings, and she is not bound to bring the rest. For 5 cases of childbirth, for 5 cases of ziva, for 5, she must bring one offering, and then she may partake of offerings. She is bound to bring the rest. It happened that in Yerushalayim, the price of pairs of doves rose until it settled at golden dinners. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said, "By this temple, I will not pass the night until they are sold for silver dinners." He entered the Beis Din and taught if a woman must bring offerings for 5 cases of childbirth, or for 5 cases of ziva, she must bring one offering, and then she may partake of an offering, and she's not bound to bring the rest. And on the day that the price of the pairs of doves dropped until it settled at 2/4 of a dinner.
Okay.
Okay. We are at Baba
Here
Kama.
we go, supply and demand. Mhm.
Okay, Baba Kama. Yud Aleph. If one bull was chasing another bull and it was injured, and this one says your bull injured it, and that one says no, not so, it hurt itself on a rock, the burden of proof relies on the one who seeks to act something from the other. If two were chasing one, this one says your bull injured it, and that one says your bull injured it. Both are exempt. If both belong to one man, both are liable. If one was large and one was small, and the damagee says not so, the small one injured it, or If one was a Tom and one was a Muad, and the damager says the Muad injured it, and the damager says no, not so, the Tom injured it, the burden of proof lies on the one who seeks to exact something from the other. If the injured one were two, one large and one small, and the damages were two, one large and one small, and the damagee says the large one injured the large one, the small one injured the small one, and the damagee says not so, the small one injured the large one, and the large one injured the small one. If one was a Tom and one was a Muad, and the damagee says the Muad injured the large one, and the Tom the small one, and the damagee says not so, the injured one injured not so, the Tom injured the large one and the Muad the small one. The burden of proof lies on the one who seeks to exact something from the other. If a bull costs 4 or 5 bulls, one after the other, the owner pays the last of them. If there is an excess in it, he shall return it to the one before him. If there is an excess in it, he shall return it to the one before that one. The latter the injury, the more the advantage. They are the words of Rav Meir. Rav Shimon says if a bull worth 200 cores a bull worth 200 and the carcass is worth nothing, this one takes a mana and this one takes a mana. If it goes and cores another bull worth a 200, the last one takes 100, and as for those preceding him, this one takes 100. And for those preceding him, this one takes 50 zuz, and that one takes 50 zuz. If it goes and cores another bull worth 200, the last one takes a mana, the one before him 50 zuz, and the first two a golden dinner. If a bull is muad toward the kind, it's kind, but it's not muad toward those not of a kind. A muad toward a man, but not a muad toward beast, or a muad toward small ones, and not a muad toward larger ones. For those toward which is muad, his owner pays the damages. For those toward which is not muad, he pays half the damages. They said before Reb Yehuda, what if it was a man muad for Shabbos and not a muad for weekdays? He said to them, for Sabbath he pays the full damages. For weekdays he pays half the damages. When does it become a tam? When it refrains for 3 Sabbath days.
Okay, that's it.
That's it. Okay.
Okay, and Ervin.
Okay. Above Olive. One who lives together with Gentile in a single courtyard, or one who does not accept the laws of Erev, the person places a restriction upon him. These are the words of Ramea. Eliezer says, Eliezer ben Yaakov says he never restricts unless there are two Jews restricting each other. Rabbi Gamil said it once happened that a Saduchi lived with us in an alley in Jerusalem, and father told us, hurry and carry out all your utensils into the alley before he carries out and restricts you. Then Yehuda rated this in different terms. Hurry and attend to your needs in the alley before it passes and he restricts you. The residents of the courtyard, one of whom forgot to participate in the error of his house, is restricted with regard to carrying in and carrying out to him and to them, but theirs are permitted to him and to them. If they ceded their rights to him, he's permitted, but if they restricted it, they are two. If they were two, they restricted each other, because an individual can cede rights and acquire rights. Two can cede rights but cannot acquire rights.
Okay.
Made it.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Tomorrow, are you going to be in shape to